Presiding officer, let me start by agreeing with Mr. Fraser when he sympathised with plaintiffs. That's entirely proper. Let's look at precedents in relation to disclosing legal advice. And it's worth saying they all stem from a period when Jackie Baillie sat in the government benches and Alec Cole, Hamilton's colleagues, sat beside her. Answer number one to Alec Neil. The Scottish Executive does not generally disclose the legal advice it may have taken on any particular matter. Any such advice would in any case be confidential. Answer two, to me, our policy is not to publish the legal advice we receive, this being covered by solicitor-client confidentiality. Answer three, to Christine Graham. Certain categories of information are exempt from the commitment to provide information. This includes legal advice. And finally, answer four, to Fergus Ewing, failed to divulge the terms of legal advice to ministers, and I'm unable to provide the legal advice obtained. The Tory motion today says provide the legal advice without further delay. Looking at the Tory record in disclosing information may tell us whether today's motion represents gross hypocrisy, opportunism, or legal blindness. One way of learning what's going on in government is freedom of information. That's a piece of legislation particularly dear to me. The training material prepared for officials contained a quote from one of my parliamentary speeches on the subject. So, some numbers. They illustrate how the Tories, to use a word in the motion, respect only honouring this in the breach. Percentage of information requests granted in full by the Tories in government has declined every year since 2010 from a high of 62% in 2010 to 44% in 2019. Requests that were held in full steadily increased from 21% in 2010 to 35% in 2019. And last year, UK government departments upheld the original decision in 83% of internal reviews, the highest proportion in the last decade. The trend to cause greater secrecy in the UK government is unmistakable, and it's been led by the largest and most powerful Whitehall departments. In the last 5 years, Cabinet Office, Treasury, Foreign Office and Home Office have all withheld more requests. So where have I got these figures from? A report published yesterday by Open Democracy, which reveals that Tory Minister Michael Gove's department has a skunk team specifically established to prevent us knowing what goes on in their government. Finally, what have I not been able to find? A single example of legal advice being published north or south of the border where the matter relates to litigation. Yes, government do occasionally publish legal advice. And to be fair to the Tory government, they did so in 2018 on Brexit, but never on litigation. The protection of legal professional privilege is vital to all parties to legal actions. The demand being made in relation to this piece of legal advice is simply a cover for the fact that the Tories are unable to properly question witnesses. The Lord Advocate said to the committee at its last meeting on the 17th of November, that will not prevent me from giving evidence to the committee today about the government's legal position from time to time in relation to the judicial review. Murdo Fraser says he refused to answer 27 times. Well, no, that's not correct. Only 3 questions were asked to him, and he repeatedly gave the same answer to 3 questions. The failure before us today from the Tories may lie in not finding the right questions. After all, the Lord Advocate said he would answer questions about the government's legal position. Because they don't have the questions, we can be certain seeing the legal advice can answer their questions. Gross hypocrisy, opportunism, or legal blindness? All three, presiding officer.